are. It's a pleasure to be here with you this afternoon. I thought I would do just a couple of things. I'll say a few words about the city of Seattle, about Seattle University, and then briefly why India-US higher education collaboration is so important. I'll try not to be too repetitive of the Vice Chancellor. Seattle is a city in the Pacific Northwest of the United States. It's the largest city west of Minneapolis, north of San Francisco. About the 15th largest city, so to put that in context, about the same size as Detroit, and rapidly growing. The population in Seattle has doubled roughly over the past couple of decades. So a very fast-growing, vibrant community, and the home of many companies that I'm sure you've heard of. It was the birthplace of the Boeing Corporation. It's also the home of Microsoft and Amazon and Starbucks and many other iconic American companies that are really at the forefront of technological innovation in the United States. And so we think of Seattle as a hub of both global trade and innovation. And Seattle University is the largest independent university in the Pacific Northwest in the Seattle region. 7,000 students. We're a Jesuit university. 6 colleges. We have a College of Nursing, a College of Education, of Science and Engineering, Arts and Sciences, Law, and Business. And because of the strong culture of innovation and the companies that have been founded in the Seattle area, we are really focused as we look to the future on growing in the areas of STEM and health science. Our fastest growing programs are in computer science and data science. The Seattle community, as it's grown, and especially as these technology companies have grown, has attracted a really significant Indian American community. Indian and Indian American community is now one of the largest centers for the Indian community in the United States, and a place where increasingly we're seeing students coming to Seattle University because they're familiar with the reputation of the university and of the city for economic innovation and opportunity. We're here in Chennai. We're signing 2 MoUs, a Memorandum of Understanding. I just returned from Loyola College campus where we signed the first of those, and then we'll also be signing an MoU with VMRF. And the purpose of these is to create the opportunity for future collaboration, sort of a framework that will then be the basis for future conversations between the academic units of each of these institutions to build more substantive collaborations along the lines that Vice Chancellor, I'm getting my American academic titles, Vice Chancellor Kumar discussed joint degrees, mutual exchange programs, immersions in both directions, research collaborations, and collaborations around community engagement. I think these kinds of agreements are really important both for Seattle University, but for higher education generally. As a Jesuit university, we're very much interested in training leaders for the future, educating leaders for the future. And to be an effective leader, you need to have a global outlook. You need to have a perspective that allows you to understand the challenges that our students are going to confront in the world as global challenges, right? And I think that's particularly true for Jesuit higher education, which has been international and global from its inception 500 years ago. But I think it's become true for higher education generally. If higher education is not international, if it's not global in its perspective, it's failing to educate its students effectively. And if you interact with students who have had a global education, you immediately notice the difference in terms of how they understand what the world is confronting, right? The challenges that the world is confronting are essentially global in nature. Things like climate change and sustainability, rapid technological transformation, right, which is destabilizing, also creates tremendous opportunity, but it's destabilizing democratic institutions, destabilizing social norms, and so to be able to understand and kind of navigate the world that our students are going to confront when they leave our campuses, they need to understand those phenomena, both in the technical matter, they need to understand them also as global phenomena. Many of the things that we find that we're engaging with and understanding and seeing in the United States are issues that you're confronting here in India as well. And so we can learn, our students can learn from your experience and certainly your students and scholars can learn from our experience. And so we need to build relationships at the institutional level to create relationships at the individual level in order to educate leaders who can effectively grapple with those issues. And as Vice Chancellor Kumar pointed out, I think within that domain of international collaboration that's really essential to higher education, the relationship between American higher education and Indian higher education is particularly important and appropriate because of all the values we share, because of because of the centers of population in the United States. There's so many Indian Americans who are very interested in engaging with India, even while they live in the United States. And because of the common commitments we have to democracy, the rule of law, and to pluralism. And so those shared values make collaboration more productive and also make it more appropriate and easier. And then I would just add to that, our common linguistic heritage, the ability to communicate easily is something that we share with India that is not as unique to that international context. The ability to have a press conference like this is something that I think makes it really appropriate as we survey the landscape and engage internationally to focus first and foremost on India, and that's what we're doing. So this is my first international trip as the president of Seattle University, and so grateful to Vice Chancellor Kumar for facilitating the meetings and introductions that we've had here. And it's important. We're very proud of our relationship with Jindal Global University, which was really the first international MOU that we signed after I became president of Seattle University, and we have a rich set of relationships personally and institutionally with Jindal, which is just a leader in higher education here in India. But India is a vast and important country, and we need to be engaging in all the regions and with many institutions to give our students a good understanding of the diversity and richness of this country. So excited to be here, and I look forward to your questions. Thank you.
So as President Fernando mentioned, they have signed MOU with two institutions, with the Loyola College, Madras, and Vinayaka Mission Research Foundation deemed to be university. Both these institutions have very interestingly different type of trajectories. One has a medical college and an engineering college and has been in the higher education sector for over 3 decades. Loyola has been a leading humanities and social sciences institution, but also has had STEM and other areas. Now, what this MOU will enable is it is a framework MOU that has been signed, which will ensure that the faculty members and the schools and the deans of both institutions can now begin to discuss specific aspects of faculty exchange, student exchange, joint teaching, joint research, joint conferences, dual degree programs, short-term study abroad programs, inward mobility immersion programs, and many other things that will be possible for both the faculty and the students to do together. This is exactly what we have done, and our relationship has now come to the stage where our students are actually already on the campus at Seattle University. We hope that with this MOU that has been signed with both these institutions in Chennai, in the next months and years to come, we will see both mobility as well as joint initiatives between Seattle University and Loyola College and Vinayaka Mission Research Foundation for various forms of partnerships.
Only for two universities, you'll be tying up with more.
That's a good question. Seattle University is making a very significant visit to India as a new president. There are few selected institutions with whom we have some partnerships in the country. In Chennai and Tamil Nadu, these are the two institutions that they are partnering with. They are very conscious of the fact that these partnerships should become meaningful, should become actually impactful, and the idea is not to simply sign something which may not have enough impact. So bandwidth and ability to execute the partnership is important for any good institution, and that is how Seattle University sees this.
Is there any plan to have similar kind of tie-ups with government universities?
That's a good question.
With government?
Government universities, yeah, public universities.
Certainly we're open to that. These are the universities that we've met. I think these are just first steps, as Vice Chancellor Kumar pointed out. These are facilitating MOUs that then we need to follow up with further conversations about specific joint degree programs, exchange programs. And I think it's important that these be truly bilateral, so that we currently have a student from Jindal studying in a joint degree program at our law school. But we're also sending a group of students to Jindal in March. We're going to come as part of a project that they're working on with a faculty member at the law school in Seattle. So we want to have students and faculty flowing in both directions. And that's going to limit the number of MOUs we can offer, because really what gives life to these agreements is that kind of person-to-person relationship. And so what we're trying to do is create a diversity within our relationships here in India, both geographically and in terms of the type of institution. And I think if we find the right state institution, we'd be open to an MOU. It's just that the ones that we've engaged with, so our longest standing relationships are with Jindal and then also with other Jesuit institutions here in India.
How do you choose institutions for similar cooperation and?
Sorry, I didn't.
How do you choose institutions for tie-ups?
Well, I think obviously academic excellence is at the top of our criteria. We need to make sure that there are institutions that are, when our students come or our faculty engage, will be institutions of comparable quality, who have students who are of high quality, so that when they come to our school, they'll succeed. So I think that's very important. I think the other important dimension to this is the breadth of the institution. So we are a comprehensive university. I talked about the 6 colleges we have, and each of those has numerous programs within it. And I think these MOUs are most effective when we're engaging with an institution of comparable breadth, right? So that we can engage across all of the different programs that we offer.
I want to add one response to your question about other institutions. This evening at 7 o'clock, Seattle University and Jindal Government University, we have invited over nearly 100 educators across public and private institutions in Chennai to participate in the US-India Higher Education Dialogue. The dialogue itself will be inaugurated by the Honorable Finance Minister of the state of Tamil Nadu, Dr. Vinayaka. He will be delivering a chief guest address. This will be followed by this dialogue where these educators will be participating. And one of the objectives of the dialogue is to see to what extent such opportunities can emerge as Seattle University discovers the wider landscape of Indian higher education sector.
So how the students are going to have HO with other universities by this MOUs?
Yeah, that's a great question. See, the most important part of any higher education related MOU is that to what extent we can provide immersive opportunities for students to experience international education. And the immersive opportunities to experience international education is one, of course, the opportunity to be educated in another institution, including its own curriculum, course structure, program, faculty, and all of that. But the second is equally important, which is about the cultural immersion and the societal immersion, in which a student moves into another country, another institution, and experiences a whole together different way of life. That, I believe, is also equally important as we look at these immersions. You asked a question, this is not only for Indian students going to America. Seattle University students will be led by a professor by the name of Professor Sital Kalantri in the month of March, who will be coming to India and to Jindal. We expect similar type of mobility happening between students and faculty from both Loyola College, Madras, and the Vinayaka mission towards Seattle University, and similarly Seattle University students and faculty coming here. That, I believe, is going to be a transformative experience for students' lives.
It's going to be
medical education NEET is required?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, Seattle University is not at all involved in the Indian regulatory process of who gets admitted. Indian medical colleges, including VMRF, will have to follow whatever Indian law, including the Medical Council of India's regulations are. so long as they are bona fide students of the Indian institutions with whom Seattle is partnering, that is good enough for the students to be benefited by these relationships. The Indian institutions which they are partnering will have to, of course, be regulated by whatever Indian rules and regulations, including the Medical Council, NEET, and other such processes.
Supplementary to that, so is it a joint degree programs whether they need a lead, they have to appear for NEET?
No, the thing is that, first of all, in the medical context, the idea of joint degree program doesn't work like that. Because both in America and in India, medical education is totally differently regulated. This is more about study abroad program or exchange program or immersion program whereby students go abroad for shorter periods of time. That could involve educational experience or even professional immersion so that they can spend a short period of time in organizations, institutions abroad. For those things, the additional entrance examinations and such things are not required because they would have already fulfilled to be primarily enrolled in the home institution.
Sir, now you said, the students going to US is increased by 30%, you know. Now the getting visas for 2 years is very, very difficult. The student has to wait for 8 months to get an appointment.
Yes.
So will we...
Well, it's a major problem. I'm going to request President Penelver to respond to it.
No, it's been a it's been a huge challenge to get student visas to come to the United States. The delays are extraordinary. Some of that was the result of COVID, you know, and the shutdown of the consulates, and they are slow in getting up and running. Our hope and expectation is that that process will become more efficient and expeditious as the consulates continue to recover and to get fully staffed. I don't think there's any lack of will on the part of the United States government to welcome Indian students to the United States, but we are experiencing that issue in a number of our degree programs where we have admitted students in India who were not able to arrive in time for the fall, the start of classes in the fall because of the slowness in getting those appointments for their visas. And so we work with them. We have an office at Seattle University that works with the students to help them navigate that process, get them the forms that we need to provide them to succeed in those consular interviews. But we need to work on trying to influence the United States government to really prioritize beefing up that operation here in India and making it possible for people. That's even more important for the exchange programs, which are quicker in terms of the turnaround. And so if we want those to work, it needs to be a reasonable period of time to get a visa to come study in the United States. But I don't think there's any I don't think there's any intentionality behind the current delays. I think it's really just the slowness of bouncing back from the disruptions caused by the pandemic.
Since distinguished members of the Chennai media are present here, I would like to propose as the Vice Chancellor of an Indian university that as India has just assumed the presidency of G20, I would like to call upon the Government of India, especially including our own Honorable Prime Minister, that we need to now move into a stage where, like many other visa categories, G20 should provide global leadership in identifying and the idea of an international student visa. There should be a separate category of IS, International Student Visa, which will enable students at least across the G20 countries to be able to move much more freely, much more easily, and that visa process should be separated from many other categories of visa, and India is in a very strategically appropriate position as it is just assumed the presidency of G20, because today one of the big challenges many of these countries are facing is that their own universities have a very strong let's say focus on international students, and ultimately international students are going to be moving into countries and societies where there are favorable visa and regulatory regimes. By the way, we should also recognize that we have our own challenges with regard to visas as well. The visa problem is not a uniquely American or Canadian or some other country's problem. Even many people who work in India under the foreign registration FRRO process also go through a lot of challenges. Part of the challenge that we're facing is that there are legitimate national security concerns that countries have with regard to processing visa from some other countries. But that remains an exceptional problem and challenge. But by and large, most countries, at least in the context of G20, should be much more comfortable to issue visas for the members of the G20 so that student mobility is not affected in this process. Student mobility becomes critical because that is how you can enable opportunities for international education, further including professional advancement, joint research, including opportunities of innovation, entrepreneurship, and things like that, all of which are going to be driven by the ability of educated people both on the student side and the professional side to move across these countries. So these are MoUs that are designed to ensure that the individual schools can now work on the details. So what happens is after a framework MoU is signed, which essentially means that both institutions are committed to work on building the partnership. The next several days and weeks and even months, the institutions will be engaging in meetings with the specific deans and faculty members in determining what are the specific types of collaborations that will be implemented, how many students may be able to move from one place to the other, what kind of programs will be designed for them, what kind of faculty level interactions can happen between both institutions. All those things are going to be undertaken through the MoU.
Thank you very, very much for your time today. Gentlemen, on your behalf, and I also thank our guests, the Vice Chancellor and the President.